Hi everyone, my name is Robert Tremblay. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here at the college, as well as a 2010 graduate. It really has been a crazy year, so we really wanted to give something back to you all. A beautiful recipe that's honestly a taste of summer. It's one of my most favorite foods to work with, one of my most favorite recipes. We're gonna do a little bit of a quick spin on it though. Instead of just doing the traditional Mexican style street corn, or elotes as it's also referred to as, we're gonna do a deconstructed version of it. So we're going to show you a nice way to do it in a couple of variations. I'll talk you through the more traditional variation, but then with this deconstructed way, gives a little bit more versatility, allows you to present it in a number of different capacities, whether it's a summer barbecue, whether it's a more formal dining event, or if you want to just share it with your family over the course of the summer. So first and foremost, what we want to get into is talking about the corn itself. An important piece in terms of working with food, working with ingredients, is understanding how to pick them out. That's something that we work with students on from the very beginning here at the college, is understanding product knowledge and how to evaluate it. So I know it can be a little bit daunting when you're going to the grocery store and you're looking for that perfect ear of corn, that perfect corn on the cob for your summer dinner, and it can be a little bit chaotic, to say the least, especially when there's 4 or 5 other people pulling corn out of the bin and ripping them apart. It's a really easy process to kind of evaluate and identify the perfect cob corn for yourselves when you're picking them out of the bin. First and foremost, you want to evaluate really the moisture content and the greenness of your husk. That's the outer layer that we have here. When it's a nice light green color, it's not dry and brittle, it has that moisture content to it, it's pliable, it moves around. That's a good indicator, but really the first place you want to look with regard to your corn is actually looking at the silk. That's what these little tassels are at the end that can be kind of a nuisance to try to get off. Going to the silk of the corn is going to be the best indicator in terms of its freshness. You want it to be kind of golden and brown on the tips, and you want it to be sticky to the touch. If it's dry and it actually can start to turn black in some instances when you're looking at corn, that lets you know that it's a little bit past its state, that it's old. So that's something you want to really keep in mind. Another thing that you want to work on is visiting your local farmers market. One of the greatest things about fresh corn during the summer is that it's available in all 50 states. Literally every state in the country grows fresh corn. So you'll have it at your disposal. Local farmers markets are a great place to go for fresh corn during the summer, and going through that seasonality factor. It's really a great element for really working with food and keeping up with those seasonalities. So now that we've identified really how to select the corn that we're going to use, what we want to talk about next is how we want to go about cooking it. So there's a couple of different options for just cooking the corn itself. My favorite method for working with fresh corn on the cob is to actually remove the silk as much as you can and then leave it in the husks and then cooking it directly on the grill. Since we're inside and I don't have a grill here, unfortunately, here in my demo kitchen, I'm going to show you a little unique way to be able to do it if you don't necessarily have a grill at home. A nice kind of life hack, if you will, on how to prepare it. If you're going to do it the way that I'm going to show you today, you can also boil them. So you can actually just cook them for about 6 to 7 minutes in hard boiling water that's well salted until it's about tender, so you can kind of feel the touch to it. But really, once you get your corn cooked, it's all about putting a final char on it and getting it to really have a nice savory application. So as I mentioned, we're going to be doing a deconstructed variation of our elotes today, but we want to really remain consistent and traditional with the flavor profiles that we're going to be working with. So really, first and foremost, we're going to start off with some whole butter. So whole unsalted butter is an important thing to start with. You're only going to need about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons or so, but using whole unsalted butter is important because you want to control your seasoning from start to finish. We're also going to do about 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of small diced red onion. We're going to need about 1 clove of minced garlic. We're going to need about 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise, just regular mayonnaise. Really, for rule of thumb for this dish is really dependent on the number of cobs of corn that you're going to be using. So really about 1 tablespoon per cob of corn that you're going to put into this. So that today we're doing 3 ears of corn for our demo today. So you're going to need about 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise. So 1 tablespoon of mayonnaise per ear of corn is kind of the perfect ratio. We're also going to add some fresh lime juice to it as we work through. And then this is one of the most important ingredients to the dish. This is grated cotija cheese. Now, really the best way to describe this cheese as far as I'm concerned is it's as if Parmesan and feta cheese had a baby. It's salty, it's sharp, it's flavorful. It's really one of the most delicious cheeses there is. You can play around with this. You can do traditional Parmesan cheese if you want to, or feta. Usually a little bit too tangy though for the application if you want to remain consistent. A nice substitute though that I really like to use is queso fresco, which is a really nice soft and light cheese that has a little bit more creaminess to it than the sharpness of your cotija cheese. So really a lot of versatility with that, but we're going to keep it traditional with the cotija cheese. We've got some freshly minced cilantro as well, and then really one of the key ingredients that we're going to add to this is going to be some chili powder. So that's going to give it some nice smokiness, a little bit of heat to it, but it's really about that smoky flavor that's going to go well with it. And then really the main star of the show is going to be our corn, our street corn. So what I did ahead of time was I boiled the corn for about 6 to 7 minutes till it was tender, and then I removed it from the husk, or from the cob itself. So the important thing that I wanted to point out was the way that I did it here today. As I was mentioning before, I don't actually have a grill here in the demo kitchen with me, so I'm gonna show you a little bit of a life hack. And I live in an apartment. I don't have a grill at my apartment, unfortunately. So this is a life hack that I do at home, even when I'm working with this for friends and family and things of that nature. So really simple way to do it if you have a gas stove or a gas burner is you can actually char it directly on your burner. So we're just going to take it and rest it right on top here. And the reason that we're doing this is because we want to get that charred effect on our corn. One of the key flavor profiles of this dish is that smoky charred flavor that comes through on the corn. It balances out with the sweetness of the fresh corn, the saltiness of the cheese and the mayonnaise and the creaminess. It's just really a delicate balance of flavors. And I don't know if you can hear it. I'm going to lean in a little bit, but you can hear the corn starting to pop a little bit. It's exactly what you're looking for. And then you're going to start to get that charred effect right on the other side. It's exactly what we're looking for. So like I said, a little bit of a life hack, but a nice way to get those traditional flavor profiles, even if you don't necessarily have a grill in your house or available for you over the summer. But if you do, it's always the best way to go is to put it directly onto the grill itself. Okay, so we've got our corn nicely charred. And now I'm going to show you how to remove it from the cob. Very simple. We're just going to take our chef's knife and we're going to cut down directly on the cob to remove it. You want to make sure that you're just getting the kernels themselves. You don't want to go too deep and cut the cob off of it. It can be very fibrous and dense. We want to have those nice tender kernels for our mixture. Okay, so we're just going to cut right down. Perfect. Awesome. I'm going to toss our cob. We're going to get this over into our prep. Perfect. Awesome. So now we're ready to kind of put everything together. Now, traditionally, when we would make a street corn like this, as I kind of talked through, doing this deconstructed version, we're going to put everything together. But normally, this would be like building a sundae, where you would have your cooked corn on the cob, you'd have it nice and grilled, you'd have all those charred kernels, and then you would immediately lather it in the mayonnaise. You would sprinkle on some of the chili powder to it, some of the fresh lime juice, and then you would roll it through the cotija cheese, get it nice and coated, and it would actually sit on a stick so you could walk around and eat it as street food as it's most commonly done. Like I said before, with doing this in a deconstructed version, it gives you a lot of versatility and it kind of gives it a little bit more accessibility for people to be able to eat it, and it's a little bit cleaner, a little bit more presentable in that sense. If you wanted to do it at a formal wedding type of function, if you're doing catering type stuff, but especially if you're going to have friends over for a barbecue, having this out so people can put it on their plates as an accompaniment to things, really a nice way to work with a dish to get those traditional flavors, but really give it in a much more versatile way. So we've got our corn ready to go. I'm going to get our pan set up and ready to go as well. Okay. And we're just going to drop in our butter now. Okay. So our whole unsalted butter, like I said, you're only going to need about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons or so of the whole unsalted butter. Okay. We're just going to let that come down. Okay. And once you've got your corn cooked, the nice thing about this is it should only take you about 10 minutes or so to really put this all together. It's a very simple procedure to finish it off and really bring all of these flavors together. We're going to start off by sweating our red onions. So really in terms of size that you want to look for, and I know small dice is a little bit general of a term, but you definitely don't want the cuts on your onions to be bigger than the kernels of the corn itself. It's about that eatability, the texture factor. These onions we're going to sweat down a little bit, so they're going to be somewhat tender, but they're going to have some crunch to it, some nice sweetness and some spiciness coming out of the fresh red onions. So it's really going to bring a nice powerful flavor to our dish. You can use like Spanish onions or just traditional white onions if you want to, but I think the red onions really do a nice job of elevating this dish to a different level. Okay, so we're just going to sweat these down. Okay. And so by doing that, what we're doing is we're pulling out the natural moisture, those natural aromas from the onions. It's really going to build up our dish and bring in some more flavor. I'm also going to season this with a little bit of salt and pepper. Okay. We're going to save our chili powder, which is going to be a key component. We're going to add that into taste at the very end. Once we get all of our components put together in our pan, that's when we're going to go ahead and start to add in our chili powder to really finish off our flavors. Okay. The onions are cooking down really nicely. It's exactly what we're looking for. Once they start to get tender like this and start to develop a little bit of translucency, we're going to go ahead and add in our garlic. Now, very important to wait a little bit in terms of adding your garlic to this, because in terms of the sugar content for these ingredients, there's actually more sugar, naturally occurring sugar in garlic than there is in the onions. So if you put the onions and the garlic into the pan at the same time, by the time the onions are cooked properly, that garlic is going to be burnt to the bottom of the pan. So that's not what we're looking for. We just want to have a nice aromatic sweating of our ingredients so that we can start to build our flavors. And I wish that these cameras had smell-o-vision on them, because just the smell of these aromatics right now is fantastic. Perfect. So now that we've got our aromatics ready to go, we're going to go ahead and add in our corn. And really this dish is all about a combination of flavor profiles. This is a great dish to show your kids and any young people that are interested in working with food. This is a great dish for them to learn how to make, because it allows you to learn how to balance flavor profiles, how to mix salty and sweet and sour, because we're going to have the acidity from our lime juice, and really working with a taste that isn't usually associated with a lot of foods is bitterness, and it's one that's underutilized in a lot of instances, but when it's used properly can really pack a powerful punch. So the charring of our corn is really going to allow that smoky flavor and bring some depth to our dish. So we're just going to work this around. Since our corn is already cooked at this point, we're just trying to get it heated and incorporated with our onions and our garlic. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of salt here, okay, a little bit of pepper. I'm gonna add a little bit of our chili powder here as well. Perfect. Some nice smokiness. Wonderful. All right, so now that our corn is ready to go, we're gonna go ahead and add in our mayonnaise. Now, I know this is a little bit of a weird ingredient to throw into this, but when I tell you the way that the fattiness of the mayonnaise and the saltiness combines with the sweetness of the corn and the tenderness of it, it's just really a beautiful, beautiful thing. So if you are vegetarian or vegan and you don't want to use the The mayonnaise itself, you can use vegan mayonnaise if you want to, or you can just do it with a simple vinaigrette would be a nice substitute for that if you wanted to change those things up a little bit. But in terms of the traditional variation of this is what it's all about. Perfect. And you can see how the mayonnaise works into the corn. Really a nice presentation for our dish. Okay. We're going to go ahead and start to work in some of our cheese and our fresh lime juice. So I'm just going to add in 1 wedge. I would say overall you're going to need about a half of a lime or so worth of fresh lime juice. Okay. Perfect. I'm just going to add about 1/4 of a lime to start. I'm going to work that in, and then we're going to taste it. And really, as you're cooking this, take some liberties with your seasoning. If you want it to be hotter, you can add in some cayenne pepper to it. You can really spice things up that way. You can change the cheeses around. You can make it more acidic. That's really one of the benefits of working with food in your own and making it at home, is that you can take some liberties and change things up. You're not, bound to a recipe just because it's written in a book or on a website. It's really about taking the food and making it taste the way you want. So now we've got our mayonnaise and everything incorporated. We're going to start to add in our cotija cheese, our finely grated cotija cheese, which is just delicious. Wonderful. Just going to stir that around again, get that worked in. The smells are wonderful. I'm going to add some more of our chili powder here. Perfect. Going to turn down our heat just a little bit. I'm going to give it a quick taste, see how we're at with our acidity, our seasoning. That is everything. I'm going to add a little bit more fresh lime juice, but not too much. Perfect. It's just really just a symphony of flavors and really balances everything out beautifully. I'm going to go ahead and add in some of our fresh cilantro here, just to the pan to get it going, and then we're going to reserve some for our plating in just a little bit. So the cilantro is going to add some nice contrast in color. That green is going to pop and really do well with it, but it's also going to add some nice freshness to it and really up the ante on the overall dish. Okay, so I'm going to turn off our heat. Perfect. Now we're going to get ready for our plating. Okay. So we're going to just do a small portion for this. Really, you can do it in a lot of different ways. Like I was saying, if you want to set it up for a catering event or, like a large barbecue, you can have it as a large bowl and people can help themselves. Or if you're going to do it as a side dish, or, for me, I'm going to make a nice appetizer starter for myself for lunch today. But really a lot of different ways that you can go about plating it and serving it for friends and family. So we're going to go ahead and get this plated up. Okay. Perfect. Absolutely beautiful. A little bit more. So we have our base. And now, one of the first rules of plating that I like to go by is the things that are in it, you kind of want to put on top and show the customer. So we're going to go ahead and add some more of our cotija cheese here right on top, because cheese never hurt nobody. A little bit more of the fresh cilantro right there on top. Perfect. Okay, and so we topped it with a little bit of fresh cilantro, and then we're going to finish it with a nice fresh wedge of lime in case the customer wants to add a little bit more to it. And there you have it. Beautiful deconstructed elotes. Enjoy.